15 months ago, my family and several of us in this arena lost a dear friend. Weldaline Satterwhite taught two of our children in 4th grade. She was a mentor to my wife when Sandy was a new teacher. And she was a friend and constant source of encouragement to me. Weldaline taught in Waco ISD for 47 years, and she saw a lot. And she wasn't bashful about sharing her opinions. And some people probably saw that she was loud and opinionated and figured she must be a malcontent. But actually, just the opposite was true. Weldaline loved Waco ISD, but she knew we could do better. Over the years, Weldaline would email me. Messages always ended with the same 3 words. Now, I'll just share it with you. Stop the insanity. Often written in a giant font, usually written in bright red, and always written in all caps, and with an ever-growing number of exclamation points. I still remember the morning our oldest son came into the breakfast room while I was reading an email from Weldaline, and while looking over my shoulder said, "Wow, that's a buttload of exclamation points." But what was the insanity that Weldaline was talking about? Well, for one, Weldaline didn't care much for standing in the power zone. In fact, she told her colleagues she didn't need to stand in the power zone because I am the power zone. And with standardized testing, Weldaline saw this increasing focus on tests and district assessments. And then she saw federal, state, and local mandates putting more and more on our teachers. In short, she saw that with all the new things being asked of you, oftentimes teachers simply don't have the time to teach. And she also saw that we were only addressing one side of this equation, that all these outside demands were making it harder and harder for her to make that relationship, to make that connection with her students. And Weldaline's right. When we as a district only focus or primarily focus on alignment of curriculum and walkthroughs and lesson plans, scope and sequence, we are missing half the equation. And we are missing that opportunity to make that relationship. Every one of you knows that a teacher can do absolutely everything right, and some of those students still not get it. That some of our students have barriers that prevent them from hearing, retaining, and processing information. And when we don't focus on those kids' issues, we do them a disservice. But equally important, when that child then begins to act out of frustration, he or she begins to affect the education of every child in that classroom. Now, I'm not blaming the students. I'm blaming us for not doing everything we can to address the needs of those students. What I'm saying is this: if we're going to complete this turnaround, if we're going to have the public schools that our community expects, and more importantly, the schools our students deserve, we don't need more staff downtown working with our teachers. We need more staff on our campuses working with our kids. Now listen, and this is important. I'm not saying every superintendent for the last 20 years had it all wrong. I'm not saying that quality of instruction isn't important. But I am saying this shouldn't be an either or. We shouldn't have to make a choice between working on instruction or meeting the needs of our kids. We can do both, and we need to do both. And we have a plan to do both. We have a plan that could potentially transform this district and the entire community. Because this school board is going to consider asking this community for an additional investment in the Waco Public Schools. Look, most of you know the numbers. Over 90% of our students are on free or reduced lunch. Last year, 944 Waco ISD students were identified as homeless. And yet surrounding districts receive more money per student than we do. But despite this lack of resources, the vast majority of our kids do what's expected of them. They are healthy, they are happy, and they are ready to learn. And I want to say that again, because this is important, the fact that it's not every child. Because there's a narrative in this community when it comes to Waco ISD. And you all know the story. Waco ISD is a district of low-achieving and troubled students. Or Waco ISD is a district in decay with families fleeing the public schools. And I'm not blaming the media, because it's not just the media. And I'm not blaming the realtors. Okay, actually I am going to blame the realtors. How many of you have tried to buy a house in the Waco area? And how many of you had a realtor tell you to avoid the Waco schools and try to push you to China Spring or Crawford or Midway? It happened to us. Sandy and I had to argue with the realtors to get them to show us houses in Waco ISD. And I'm the board president. And the truth is, many of you believed them. And many of you bought houses elsewhere, and you enrolled your kids in other school systems. I'm not blaming you, it's not your fault. That's just the prevailing narrative that everyone believes. But let me give you some facts. First off, families are not fleeing Waco ISD. In fact, last year, we had 84 more students than we had the year before. The truth is, all across this community, every year, doctors, bankers, lawyers, college professors, successful business people choose to put their kids in Waco ISD. And why? Because after they do some research, they find our students are achieving great things. For example, I'll give you some examples from just the past 12 months. Everything I'm about to go through has happened in the past year. Waco ISD dominated the regional and state history fair. 45 Waco ISD students advanced to the State History Fair, and 6 advanced to National History Day. In fact, if you look at every middle school student in the entire state of Texas that went to National History Day, almost 1/4 of them came from the Atlas Academy in Waco ISD. The Waco High School musical, Tarzan, got nominated for 3 prestigious DSM High School Musical Theater Awards. And then, competing against some of the most established and well-funded theater programs in the entire state, they won the DSM Awards for Best Set Design and Best Costume Design. And by the way, if you have not gone to a high school musical at Waco High or University High in the last 4 years, you are missing an amazing show. West Avenue's Destination Imagination team advanced to state in the DI Fine Arts Challenge. Taylor Henderson at Waco High was recognized as the outstanding oral advocate in the regional mock trial competition. And by the way, the year before that, Mrs. T.Kel's son's Marshall was honored as the outstanding oral advocate in the entire state. Last week, there was a study that looked at SAT scores and the percentage of applications that were accepted and concluded that Rice University and the University of Texas were the 2 hardest schools in the state to get into. And last year, Waco ISD had 3 graduates enrolled at Rice University, all pursuing bachelor's degrees and all on academic scholarship. And as for that second hardest school, University of Texas, UT's freshman class, the freshman class alone last year included 9 Waco High graduates. Last year, 11 Waco ISD choir students, including our youngest son, Nick, and 45 band students advanced to state in UIL solo and ensemble. 56 WISD musicians went to state. We had numerous middle school band and orchestra students qualify for all-region recognition. In fact, in Indian Springs, Yashara Jackson, first chair, all-region jazz band on the trombone. Students at the A.J. Moore Academy once again operated the largest free, community-based income tax service in the entire nation. Lake Air Montessori had students that attended the Global Citizen Action Project in New York City, and those same students had the honor of working with the shortest public school principal in the entire United States. Congratulations, Tank. Middle school students at the Atlas Academy were recognized for their high scores on the SAT. University High Art student Elsa Luciano and her art piece Sally advanced to state in the VASE state competition. But you want to know what really upsets me about this narrative of low achieving students? Remember those 944 homeless students I mentioned? Across the state of Texas, fewer than 25% of homeless students graduate high school. Last year, in Waco ISD, under the leadership of Cheryl Pooler, 96% of our homeless students graduated, including 100% of our homeless seniors. That's why it's hard for me to hear that our students are underachieving. Listen to those numbers again. Waco ISD, 96%. The rest of the state of Texas, less than 25%. That's why it upsets me when I hear our schools are failing, because it's not true. And by the way, it's not just our students. Some of you are also bringing a lot of recognition to the district. Cesar Chavez teacher, Jared Nazarian, the Region 12 Secondary Teacher of the Year. And by the way, I think most of us know Region 12's on Highway 6. We just think it's kind of Waco and the surrounding districts. Region 12 is huge. It's a 12-county area over all of Central Texas. It includes more than 75 public school districts, and Waco ISD had the outstanding secondary teacher. West Avenue's principal, Joseph Alexander, selected by Raise Your Hand Texas to attend the Improving Schools and Art of Leadership Institute at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Coach Taylor at Waco High was Super Syntax Coach of the Year. His assistant coach, Coach Salazar, was the area's top assistant, and I'm sure I'm missing others. And remember, all those things just happened in the past 12 months. If you back that up a year or two, you can add to that list National Merit Scholars, all-state musicians, all-state athletes, and a Class 5A state championship in soccer. So today, I'm going to ask everyone in this arena to join me in making a pledge. That other narrative, that narrative of families fleeing a crumbling district in decline, that narrative ends today. But it does raise a question. Why does that narrative continue to persist? And the truth is, it's because we can do some things better. The truth is, we have some critical areas that it's easy for the doubters to latch onto and focus on. Critical areas that make your job harder to do every day. We can do more to address behavior. We can do more to address literacy. And we can do more to help prepare our college-bound students. Look, I know several of you have had the experience of writing up a child, sending her to the office, and a few minutes later having her back in your classroom. I also know most of you are sitting with your principals, so I'm not going to ask for a show of hands. I already see the principals looking around trying to see who's nodding. This district is looking at staffing a separate classroom, not ISS, but a non-punitive classroom on the campuses, where that student who's being disruptive can go, and certified teachers and aides will continue to deliver the core content and work with them on their behavior and behavioral outcomes until they're ready to return to the class, whether that takes an hour or whether it takes an entire day. That child will be removed from the classroom so you can teach and the other students can continue to learn. But we're also going to address the needs and make a relationship and a connection with that student. We're going to address behavior and appropriate responses and self-control, and we're not just going to continue to punish that child. Again, most of our students know and follow the rules, but in the past, those students who did that often had their day interrupted by the conduct of others. This investment will eliminate that. And we're looking at ways to provide campus-based mental health services, including health professionals, additional social workers to help make those relationships with families, and qualified behavioral specialists. We're looking at adding paraprofessionals to help with some of the most time-consuming requirements of programs like RTI. And this investment will include parent accountability. If your child's removed from the classroom 3 times or 5 times, we're going to require you to come to Saturday diversion school. Because look, our public schools do a lot, but public schools don't raise children. Parents need to raise children, and we need to help hold parents accountable. We also know that reading proficiency by 3rd grade is the most important predictor of high school graduation rate and career success. A couple of years ago, Rick Noriega, the CEO of National Avance, spoke at the city's education summit. Mr. Noriega said that one of the primary data points that the criminal justice system looks at in determining the number of beds they will need 10 years out is the number of 3rd grade students reading on grade level. This is critical. Gayla Reed and her folks have put together a reading initiative that's going to include 120 minutes of reading instruction every day, including 90 minutes of uninterrupted instruction. This board will be discussing a proposal to add 134 instructional aides across the district, an aide in every pre-K room, an aide in every kindergarten room, and an aide for every 2 classes in 1st and 2nd grade. And Human Resources is looking at increasing the pay for our aides and paraprofessionals. This past year, 58% of our 3rd graders passed the STAR reading test. Actually, I'm not applauding that one, because this administration is going to present a goal, and this board will begin discussing a goal that by the year 2020, that number will be between 85 and 88%. We're also focusing on literacy in middle school. We've added a 90-minute block of English language arts. We're looking at adding even more reading teachers so that those push-in teachers can cover every English class every day. And we're looking to expand Brazos credit recovery to help middle school students, especially those students who are older, who struggle with reading and aren't yet ready for high school, but they're too old to leave in middle school. This year, we added 35 secondary teachers so we could move to the 8-period day. This additional investment will help ensure that those positions are sustainable. And perhaps most exciting, through a partnership with MCC, this investment will ensure that every junior and every senior in Waco ISD can take every dual credit course they want at McLennan Community College at no cost to their family. Now, if a lot of this sounds familiar, it's because it came from you. We've met with principals and teachers and asked campus staff what this should look like to improve educational outcomes, to improve behavior, and to provide a better work environment for teachers and staff. Additional teachers and instructional aides will allow for smaller classes and more support. These initiatives will allow you in the future to have better behaved students with better reading skills. As a community, we'll have students closer to achieving that associate's degree. You know, the Upjohn report that the City of Waco commissioned a couple of years ago showed that locally, in the Waco economy, a young person with an associate's degree has an earning capacity 50% higher than just a high school graduate. Now, some of you were at those meetings, and not everyone's going to get everything we discussed. There were a lot of good ideas that aren't included. Technology, more green space around our campuses, enrichment activities, and the equalization of fine arts across the district. Just because something's not a part of this package doesn't mean it's unimportant or it won't perhaps get done somehow in the future. Our Waco ISD Education Foundation, our grants department are going to continue to look for additional funding sources. But we wanted to show voters that this is not a wish list. Rather, this is a focused plan with measurable outcomes that will improve critical needs in our district. So how are we going to do all this? Quickly. We're proposing that we ask voters to approve no more than a 9-cent raise in the tax rate. That 9-cent increase will generate an additional $8.5 million every year in Waco ISD. That money would be used to fund initiatives like the ones I just talked about. And significantly, this board has said every dollar will go to the campuses, not to central office. Of that 8.5 million, 4.5 would be generated locally, but $3.9 million will come from Austin. In other words, we have a guaranteed annual rate of return of 86.7%. For every $100 we invest, the state of Texas will match it with an additional $86.67. Or said another way, every year we don't do this, we're leaving $3.9 million on the table down in Austin. It also helps offset inequities in school finance. School finance in Texas is not adequate and it's not fair. We know some of our students are simply more expensive to educate, and yet we still receive less money per student than most of the surrounding districts, and this will help offset that. Importantly, the average Waco ISD homeowner will actually see their taxes go down next year, even with the rate increase, because the legislature just increased the homestead exemption from $15,000 to $25,000. So even if the board were to decide to go with the full 9-cent increase, the average homeowner will actually pay $50 less in taxes than they did last year. And if you're 65 or disabled, your taxes are frozen and can't go up. This is also going to help us retain quality teachers. Last year, our teacher turnover rate was 27.3%. We know this job can be tough, and we want to get you the support you need in your classrooms. We're also going to show the community specific goals and measurable outcomes. Again, it's not a wish list, it's a forward-looking vision for a new and improved Waco ISD. And most importantly, these initiatives are campus-driven and based upon conversations, input, and feedback that we got from you. This could be a game changer. This could change that community narrative about the Waco schools. It's a vision for better schools focused on the barriers that have held us back in the past. You know, for years people have come up to me and said, why can't Waco ISD get it together? But over the last couple of years, that's changed. Community leaders, through initiatives like Prosper Waco, have discovered that educational outcomes are directly linked to health and financial security. For the first time in the history of this district and the community, we have city leaders who want to address those issues on a large scale, but we have to do our part. Now, many of you are going to help with this. You're going to want to help change that narrative, help explain how all these new positions will help you and all students and teachers across the district. And we want your help. We want you to talk to your friends, your neighbors, and your congregations. It has to be on your own time. Don't use your Waco ISD email accounts. Don't use any district resources. Don't tell parents how to vote during a parent-teacher conference. Don't post on social media or send out any emails during school hours. But on your own time, you can definitely help us turn out the vote, and we need your help. Look, folks, this won't be easy. But what we're saying to the community is the future can be better. And with the proper support, we can do better. After listening to your ideas, this board's prepared to ask this community to make an investment in the Waco Public Schools. We know our community can't move forward without strong public schools, and we know we can't continue to advance public education without the support of our community. God bless, have a great year, and let's make this happen. Thank you.